You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, episode 69. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
Hi again, everybody, and welcome to episode 69 of the Tricorder Transmissions. We are your hosts, Jeff Hewlett.
And Craig Cohen.
You know, Craig, we're going to be talking today about Whom Gods Destroy, and for some reason in my mind, I can't never get that title right without looking at it. I always want to insert a "the" in there.
Whom the Gods Destroy.
But yeah, for some reason I keep wanting to do that, and it's not the title of the episode. So I don't know. I don't know if anybody else out there has that problem, but I keep doing that in my mind.
Yeah, when I was starting to do research, I went over to the Google machine, and I was inclined to type "Who Gods Destroy," but I didn't. But I came close, and then I added the M.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we have different troubles with the title of this episode. Not that it's a bad title, just strange that it doesn't roll off the tongue. Whom Gods Destroy.
Yeah.
But at any rate, last week's show, Lon of Troyes, got a lot of good conversation on the website.
Yeah, it was great to hear from everybody chiming in on our perspective takes on things, and it was great to hear and read and interact on that thread. It was great, and it does definitely point out the different interpretations people can have watching the same thing.
Absolutely, and I don't think that it's really settled. I don't think it's really settled, guys. I mean, I know we're still at odds. I haven't been convinced, and I didn't convince anybody else. So I think we're all kind of at an impasse.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there were some pretty good, solid arguments, at least related to Alon's true feelings and how she reacted to things.
Yeah, I guess we probably will never know the true answers. So it's a good thing we can all agree to disagree and enjoy Trek for what it is and move on to other episodes like today's episode. Another thing, speaking of feedback that we've gotten from users, I wanted to take another minute to thank everybody who's been listening to our new mini-series with 5-Year Mission, What Are Little Songs Made Of series. The third episode was out last Wednesday, and we've been getting a lot of great feedback from people on Facebook who have been listening to this. A couple of good 5-Year Mission fans out there who've been consistently, leaving us some positive comments. So thanks again, guys, for listening to these shows. And I've talked to some of the 5-Year guys offline, and they're pretty happy with the response as well. Yeah.
I actually just started going back and listening to the episodes. I'm a couple of weeks behind. But yeah, it's a great series for a great group of guys, and their insights are really great, and it's great seeing how their fans are responding to some of the information that's being shared in terms of how they're writing songs or the process that they went through. So I'm glad that the series is really delivering the way that we all thought it would.
I agree with you completely, and it's making me wish that some of my favorite bands would do something similar.
Yeah, right.
I'd really love some insight into songs, like the insight that we're getting from the 5-Year Mission guys. It's really great to hear some of these details, and especially on the third episode, the Charlie X episode that just came out, we had some controversial lyrics, and it was nice to hear the band kind of walk through their discussion of whether or not to keep the lyric in or take it back out. So
yeah,
that was really cool to know that type of discussion is going on behind the scenes. And all right, well, not a lot of Trek news this week. I mean, some older stuff is lingering out there that we haven't mentioned yet, and one of those things is George Takei's Broadway musical is going to be starting up, Allegiance.
Oh, cool. You know what? I recently watched To Be Decay, And they, a portion of that documentary revolves around the creation of that musical, and they reference that it's going to be on Broadway. And this is, of course, a documentary that's I think like 2 years old at this point. And after it finished, I guess it had its performance in San Francisco, and that's it. So very cool to see it's coming to Broadway, because I know that was their intent.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this because we live in New Jersey and Broadway is a hop, skip, and a jump for us. So
yeah,
this will be a really great opportunity to check this show out when it finally does open. So it's Allegiance, a new American musical, and Takei considers this a legacy project. So to educate people about what he went through, I'm really excited to see this coming out. And we saw Shatner on Broadway, so it'd be really great to see Takei's project on Broadway as well.
Yeah. I think we're actually coming up on an anniversary of Shatner's World. That was February, wasn't it?
I think so. It was pretty cold.
Yeah.
I'll have to look up the exact date, but wow, that was forever ago. Feels like forever ago.
I think 2013, maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, that might have been, or it might have been earlier than that. But I remember one of the things I remember very vividly is after the show was over, I was out on the street with...
Ben Stiller.
Yeah, that I was out on the street and with my uncle and some other people that I was there with, and up walks Ben Stiller. It was really cool.
Yeah.
So, New York City is amazing that way.
Only in New York. Yeah, it's funny. Every time we go to the city, I'm always looking for people. And we were in the park one day, and I had some cousins and my, sister. And I was like, oh, there was Kieran Culkin. And they all, turn around. They said, he was long gone by that point. But it's so funny. I'm like, you got to keep your eyes out for these people. And I just love seeing them. I saw Michael McKean once, which was really cool.
Yeah, I was up in the city for a work function not too long ago with one of the listeners to the show, and we were walking up to the building where we were going to this meeting, and we walked right past Lucy Liu, who was walking the other way.
Oh, cool! Yeah, she films what? Elementary
up there. Yep.
Yeah.
And it was funny that I recognized her, but she looked a little bit different in person. She looked a little bit shorter than she does on TV. So that was really cool. But New York is New York, and these kind of things are kind of common in New York. I mean, I'll never forget years ago. This is kind of still off topic, and I'm sorry to anybody out there who is kind of put off by us talking about off topic things. But many, many years ago, I remember being down in the Village, down around Canal Street, and I was there with a girl that I was hanging out with at the time, and as we're walking down the street, we look across to the other side of the street, and there are cameras, and everybody's staring over there, and sure, we see Jack Nicholson walking down the street, and I forget what movie they were filming at the time, but...
Wolf, I bet it was Wolf.
I think it was prior to that. This was like 1996 or 97.
When was Wolf?
I think that was later than that. I thought it might have been...
that was Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean, she cooled off by 96, didn't she?
Yeah, I thought it was about Schmidt or something like that. Or one of those movies, because he's kind of looked a little bit wacky with the wild hair, and he's kind of whimsically walking.
Oh, you know what? I bet it was Anger Management.
I thought maybe. I have to look at it. It might have been Anger.
Because I know they filmed part of Anger Management here in New Jersey.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look that up. I did know what movie it was. But I've since forgotten, so I'm gonna have to look down his catalog.
I don't want to extend this too much longer, but I have two cool celebrity encounters.
Oh, cool. Go ahead.
Well, another one in the Village. This is probably the early 90s. Me and my cousin were walking, I think, to a comic store, and we passed Rick Ocasek from the Cars.
Oh, no way.
And we said, hey, it's Rick Ocasek from the Cars, and he stopped and he said, oh, hey, guys, and then we all sort of just stood there looking at each other, and he's like, I gotta go, and he went on his way. And then last year, we were driving in the city, me and my mom and my sister, and we were at a traffic light at a crosswalk, and Woody Allen and Sun-Yi crossed, and
no way.
I pointed ahead. I was like, hey, look, it's Woody Allen, and we got a good laugh, and I said, hey, I was seconds away from possibly ending Woody Allen's life if I wanted
to. We could probably go on for forever with...
I could even tell my I'll save it for another episode when I met Willem Dafoe in Penn Station.
Oh, no way. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. I only have one more that I can remember, and it was actually Trek related, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was... we were in Philadelphia. We were on Walnut Street, and we were going to a cigar shop down there. I think it's called Mahogany on Walnut at the time. And we were stopped at a corner, and on the right next to the car walked Robert Picardo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, doctor from Voyager, and holographic doctor, everybody knows. And we didn't get to talk to him. I kind of waved at him out the car window, and he kind of glanced at me, but that was about it.
Oh, very cool.
I was like, hey, that was pretty cool. So, all right. So anyway, moving on. I was going to get kind of dragged into this, but looks like we don't do a lot of retail news or item news, but it looks like there's some new Trek TOS action figures coming out. Yeah, they're made by Funko. So we know Funko is the company that makes the pop figures.
Yeah,
that are so popular.
Yeah, the pop vinyl figures.
Yeah, I have a few of those myself, but these are actually not pop vinyl figures. They're actually they look kind of like the original Star Wars figures.
Oh, cool.
That we had when we were kids. They're retro style, and they come on the cardboard back with the blister on the front. So it looks like there's 4 in this series. You got McCoy, Spock, Uhura, and Sulu.
Neat.
And they're going to be $9.99 each. And it looks like there's a pre-order. So it's a 1980 style card back design. So pretty cool. I would hope eventually they'd put out the rest of the characters, because it would be nice to have a full set. They're $10 a piece, so run you $40 for all 4 of them. But they look pretty cool. Looks like they come with some accessories. Spock has a little bag, it looks like, and looks like Uhura has some kind of pad in her hand. McCoy has a tricorder. Sulu has a phaser. So pretty cool stuff.
Oh, neat. Yeah. And if nothing else, it'll be something to look out for at the convention.
Ah, yeah. The convention in Vegas that it looks like we're going to be going to this year.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. But we'll talk about that more as we go. Oh my God. How could I forget, Craig? How could we forget to mention this? We mentioned George Takei earlier, and we are going to have our opportunity to finally meet him.
Oh, yeah, next month, right?
Yeah, coming up actually, it's April 3rd. We're going to be, if anybody is in the Philadelphia area, Craig and I, the Tricorder Transmissions, will be at the Greater Philadelphia Comic Con, where George Takei, Nichelle Nichols, and Walter Koenig are going to be. So we have our reservation set up to meet George.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a Friday night. We're going to be there. So if anybody out there is in that area and wants to meet up and say hi at the convention, let us know, and we'll be happy to say hi and meet up with you there.
Oh, yeah. And who knows? We might even have some Tricorder Transmissions related swag. Who knows?
Yeah, I think we'll have a little bit of stuff to hand out if we meet anybody.
Yeah, you know what? I even still have some of those matchbooks from Quarks.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Let us know on Facebook if you're gonna meet up there. So that'd be really cool. But you ready to jump into Whom Gods Destroy?
Yeah, I think we've taken plenty of the listeners' time up already.
Yeah, good idea to move on. So the episode aired on January 3rd of 1969, first episode of 69 to air, and the remaster came on May 24th of 2008.
Oh, right, and we have the NBC press release issued December 5th, 1968. Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock become prisoners in an intergalaxy asylum where the inmates have seized control and plan to rule the universe in Whom Gods Destroy on NBC television network Star Trek Colorcast of Friday, January 3rd.
So we're going to start our commentary in 3, 2, 1. There's your opening shot again, Craig.
Yeah, hey, I love it. I'll never get tired of it.
One of our favorite characters. And we open with a captain's log. Mm-hmm. So we're this is interesting. We're getting a setup via
it's almost like
log.
a real-time captain's log, though.
Yeah, he's recording it as they're approaching the planet. So it's interesting that they have to use a captain's log to get the background information for the episode out in a succinct way, because you pretty much get dumped right into the action.
Yeah.
You got Kirk and Spock beaming down, and one thing I thought was really interesting about this is that Kirk and Governor Corey here seem to know each other already.
Yeah.
So there seems to be some history there. But the setup, of course, is that this planet has some kind of poisonous atmosphere. I guess that makes it the perfect place to set up an asylum.
Yeah.
So it's impossible to escape to the surface because as soon as you leave the facility, you're in bad shape.
Yeah, yeah, and they also have a force field.
Yeah, to prevent people from beaming to the surface and beaming off of the surface. So they had to disable the shield so that Kirk and Spock could beam down.
It's really just a convenient way to make this episode happen.
Of course. Of course. Well, there are a lot of really interesting things that happen in this episode. So right now we're getting the introduction of the main villain of the episode, Garth of Izar, and
yes.
It looks like we have yet another former fallen Starfleet captain.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about Garth, as opposed to the myriad of other fallen Starfleet captains we've seen, is that Garth actually is a historic figure in Starfleet. He was a very, very honored captain that Kirk actually studied when he was at the academy. So there's this guy was out, flying around the cosmos while Kirk was still in the academy. So that kind of extends the backstory of Starfleet back even further in my mind.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, we had Captain Pike who was around before Kirk. So I guess Garth was around either prior to or at the same time as Pike was flying around out there.
Yeah.
So pretty cool that we get a little bit of a vision again into the past. And I love how this episode showcases some of the alien races that haven't really gotten a lot of airtime.
Yeah. Well, we've got the Orion girl, and then we've got the Tellarite and an Andorian, a true Andorian.
Yeah, not the wannabe. So I love how we saw them all as we walked by, and now we get to reveal that Garth is able to shapeshift, and everybody there is in alignment with him, and he's got the real governor imprisoned in a cell.
Yeah, and I like how they do the morphing transition. I guess they were limited in what they could do in 68, but I think it's really creative to do that, that zoom or focus, whatever that camera move they do is for that transition. I just really like that, and then it also gives the feel that he's really transforming as opposed to just doing some kind of I guess in 68 they were really, really limited. They could have done a flash cut or something, but I really like the way they do that.
I agree with you, and I love the fact that they didn't feel the need to change it or update it.
Yeah.
They left it as is, which is really cool, and it's a really interesting concept too, and I think we'll get into it a little bit more later in the episode because we got a couple of other things that bear mentioning now, but they'll describe how Garth is able to do this shortly, so we will tackle that topic when we get there. But something that I found very interesting in this episode is the fact that mental illness in Trek hasn't been cured. You know what I mean? There are so many things in Star Trek that are easily curable with a hypo, right? McCoy is able to quickly whip up cures for everything pretty much. But mental illness still exists in such a form that you have to have asylums to lock people away.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at the broad umbrella of mental illness, it kind of makes sense for me.
I'm not saying that it doesn't make sense. I just found it very interesting how easily they're able to cure so many grievous illnesses.
Yeah.
But it seems that they haven't gotten a way that they could rehabilitate the mentally ill enough that they don't necessarily need to have these, maximum security asylums. Well,
wait about 45 minutes and we might have a different different answer.
Yeah, I guess one of the Kirk already set up in the captain's log that there is some newfangled medicine that they were delivering to this facility that was supposed to be maybe a miracle cure. So potentially we may have the cure.
Yeah.
But up until this point, we don't know how long this facility's actually been here. So
yeah, I wanted to get back to I guess the stinger,
Yeah.
or the pre-break where we see that Corey's been doubled out, and I want to talk a little bit about Marta, who is an incredibly tragic character, possibly one of the most tragic characters in all of the original series.
I can see that.
She tries to give Kirk and Spock the heads up that Corey is not who he seems, and he's an imposter. What do you think was going on there with her? Do you think she was just having fun with them? Because obviously she's got a allegiance to Garth. Or was it just the way her head works is so twisted that, she was, messing around with Garth?
It's hard to say. I mean, she kind of wavers back and forth throughout the episode quite a bit, and it's hard to judge because she is in a mental facility.
Yeah.
So she may just be, extremely up and down, bipolar, maybe flipping and flopping around quite a bit. And maybe she was just goofing around. Maybe she knew that they wouldn't believe her, or it could be possible that she was in a different frame of mind and maybe saw an opportunity to escape a difficult situation.
Yeah.
And expose Garth immediately. So maybe she saw that help. She knew Garth was free and roaming around and kind of ruled the infirmary at this point, and maybe she saw Kirk and Spock as the only way to get things back to the way they were, or potentially save herself, because she probably figures Garth will eventually kill her as he's done to other people in the past.
Yeah, it's really a great performance, and we'll talk more about her as we go along.
Sure, and by the way, she is actually the first live action Orion slave girl we've seen since the pilot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we saw in the menagerie, we saw footage of an Orion slave girl, of Vina, but this is the first one we've actually seen in a Star Trek episode. So
that's a good little bit of trivia.
Yeah, pretty cool. They finally wrapped back around and brought a slave girl.
So here is another sort of nitpicky moment of the episode is Kirk has given a command to Scotty that Scotty has to ask for a chess move before beaming up. I love this tantrum that Garth is throwing.
Fantastic.
As Kirk.
Yeah,
it's like a child.
Yeah, this is one of those super hammy moments for Shatner, but I think this is great.
Yeah.
I mean, he really, really, really gets into it, banging on the floor, but I guess this really and a piece of something he's wearing flew off. But I think this is very telling, not only about the mental state of Garth, but it also kind of clues the audience into the fact that it's not easy for him to maintain the form of somebody else, and if he's expending too much energy, he can't maintain it. And he winds up changing back. So
So to get back to the whole chess move, do you think Kirk was worried beaming down, or because this is not anything we've ever seen them utilize before?
No, I was gonna talk about this too. So it's a good thing you brought this up. My thought on it was that he knew he was going to a mental facility, so maybe there's some sort of a protocol that he has to set up like a 2-factor authentication system just in case, somebody breaks loose down there and is forcing him to, try to beam them back to the Enterprise or otherwise escape. Maybe there's some sort of a formal protocol. Or maybe it's a Starfleet mandate. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe Kirk, after the problems he had in What Are Little Girls Made Of and Day of the Dove.
Yeah, good observation.
Said, you know what? I'm gonna err on the side of caution this time.
Yeah, another thing I thought was funny related to that is that Scotty is so confident in himself and his relationship with Kirk that he actually says, "I can't believe he would test me."
Yeah.
So, because Garth said, "Oh, it was just a test," and kind of signed off, but Scotty knows well enough. He knows his place on the ship, and he knows his history with Kirk well enough that Kirk wouldn't test him. Because Scotty's resolve is unbreakable. So, but speaking of Kirk, one thing that I really love about Kirk, and I think this episode really, really shows the range of his abilities under pressure. He totally plays along with Garth a lot to placate him.
Yeah.
We've seen other situations where Kirk has been in a similar place where he's been very defiant and, very resistant, very defiant and getting physical quite a bit. But in this, he actually seems to have some reverence for Garth, and he understands that Garth is mentally ill.
Yes.
And he's, playing a psychological game with him. He's just kind of going along with it, waiting for a strategic opportunity to try to enact some sort of an escape. So it's a bit of a different approach to the life and death situation that we've seen prior to this. Yeah. So I love the fact that Kirk as a character can approach similar situations in completely different ways based on who he's dealing with.
Right.
Yeah, really, really like that. And, we did kind of miss the explanation of Garth's ability to shapeshift, which I found really, really interesting, by the way, that he was near death on an alien planet, and the aliens taught him a method of healing himself, but he took it an extra mile and learned how to use that to transform into other people. And, while that's a very sci-fi concept, I love the idea that a human, a normal, everyday guy, could learn these types of techniques from an alien race without being physically changed in any way. They didn't give him an injection or build cybernetics into him. He just was able to learn it. So what does that say about the potential of man encountering alien races? That, Star Trek would say that we have this untapped potential in ourselves, and we can learn how to use it. Mm-hmm. Pretty interesting to me. Like, we've seen Kirk, Kirk can't do the Vulcan neck pinch, right? He can't knock people out like Spock can. You would think maybe he could learn that, but he hasn't. Kirk can't mind meld. He hasn't learned that from Spock, but Garth was able to learn how to change his molecular structure. So what does that say about the potential of man? I love that idea. I love that concept that pretty much anything is possible. Yeah, all we have to do is figure out how.
Yeah, it is very cool.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So I guess we should talk a little bit about Garth since he's here on screen. It's actor Steve Einart, or Einat. He died in 1972 at the age of 37.
Wow, that's tragic.
Of a heart attack, too. Jeez. Really. Around this time, he was on shows like The Outer Limits, Perry Mason, The Fugitive, and he was on multiple episodes of Mission Impossible as a bunch of different characters.
Very cool. I always love to hear about them being on other shows. And I have to say, while we're talking about him specifically, I think this performance is spectacular.
Yeah, this episode's full of great performances from Steve to Yvonne Craig here as Marta, and even Key Luke as Corey, who's been kind of roughed up, and I think his performance definitely feeds off of that. Yeah,
I agree, and we'll talk more through some of the future scenes with Garth, but. I love that he's able to portray a mentally ill guy so well, with some glimpses of brilliance in there. And I love the continuity here. Once again, we've always stated that the original series has a lot of disjointed continuity issues, but I love the fact that they stayed true to the Orion girl and have her doing a dance similar to what we saw Vina do back in the pilot or in the menagerie as well.
Yes.
So that remains true. They established that they're, these Orion women are irresistible to men, and they are able to utilize their sexual charms. And she's doing that just well with Kirk. So I love that they kept that consistent.
Yeah.
So excellent stuff there. Unfortunately, the Andorian and the Tellarite don't get to do a heck of a lot. So we can't comment on their their continuity, but at least Marta gets to be the Orion girl we remember from the menagerie.
Yeah, yeah. And I got to say, and I think I might have talked about this on Journey to Babel, but the Tellarite really looks like something out of Mos Eisley on in Star Trek or in
he
Star
looks
Wars.
like the guy that gets his arm cut off.
Yeah,
Mos Eisley, right?
It's rare that you see similarities in creature design between the two movie or the series and or the two series. But that one sits a little too close to home for me.
I can see that.
It almost seems like if you were ever going to do a crossover, the Tellarites would be the link.
Getting a good look at him right there, he definitely does look a lot like that pig guy from the bar in Mos Eisley, but
I think his name was Doctor something too.
I don't recall. I'm not up on all the minor Star Wars character names.
Yeah, it's funny. I listened to another show. I'm way behind on they're quite a few episodes ahead of me, but I'm listening to a podcast called Star Wars Minute. And what they do is they're going through the original trilogy, and every episode is 1 minute of the movie.
Oh, I think I've heard about that.
Yeah, and they last about anywhere from 8 to 15 minutes per episode, and it's a fun show. And I think they're up to Jedi by now, but I'm still in the first movie. It's really cool, but enough Star Wars talk. We always seem to find a way to work Star Wars in.
Well, it's okay. That's all right. So at any rate, we're learning a little bit more about Garth here, and he was a starship captain, as we knew, but he had when he came back from being healed by this alien race, he turned around and destroyed, using the power of ship, destroyed all of the aliens that helped him. So he destroyed their entire civilization, and after that his crew mutinied. And one of the things he wants to do is hunt down all of his former crew members and kill them all.
Yeah.
Get revenge on them using the Enterprise. That's one of the things he wants to do by stealing the Enterprise from Kirk. So we're getting some insight into just how crazy this dude is. And again, this is another fantastic, fantastic performance by Steve. This is truly, truly awesome. And I think looking at this, watching this episode a couple of times and talking about it with you now, I think I can safely say that Garth is my favorite fallen captain, even more than Decker. I love Commodore Decker, but I think for pound, I think Garth is a much more dynamic and fascinating character.
Yeah.
Especially in his mentally ill state. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely fantastic. And actually, we had an interview a while back with the Star Trek Axanar project.
Yeah, Alex.
Alex, that's based on this episode.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool project. And they are having so much success with their funding. I mean,
absolutely. It's an exciting project.
It really is. And it really speaks to the idea that when you present the fan base with a really intriguing idea, they'll put the money up for it. I mean, they've raised like $250,000, I think.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge,
and they're really getting their money's worth too. I mean, the prelude, which we talked about in our interview with Alex, is just amazing.
Yep.
I mean, you've got big name talent like Tony Todd.
Yep.
And Richard Hatch from Battlestar Galactica.
Mm-hmm.
And just some really, really tremendous visual effects as well. It's it really is phenomenal, and it's so cool to see. And we've often talked about, how writers of the movies had the opportunity to sort of cherry pick characters out of episodes, and that's exactly what they did. And they're creating this wonderful, working from the backstory that Garth has.
Exactly. And the Battle of Axanar is mentioned in this episode slightly later. So I love that we're getting some of these projects that are based around this stuff. And maybe, Oh, by the way, here we go. I wanted to quickly mention that how cool that was. How he got annoyed by Spock and sent him away. Spock was kind of trying to pick Garth apart, and he had this fantastic, almost violent reaction where Garth insists on dragging Spock from the room.
Yeah,
which is phenomenal.
Yeah, I don't want to harp on it too much, but it really feels to me like Nimoy wasn't that invested in this episode, and I don't know if it was just his attitude during season 3, but I don't know. And I think I mentioned this a couple episodes back about Spock feeling a little bit off, but I've definitely noticed as we've gone along through season 3 that Nimoy, at least for me, seems to be doing something different and not in a good way.
I agree. He does seem like a very different Spock. Although, I mean, there's still elements of Spock there. It does seem like a more close to the chest Spock, a more reserved Spock. But
yeah, and I don't know if at that point Nimoy was just sort of tuned out or not really that invested in the show anymore, or what was going on. Who knows? But for me, it's definitely noticeable. And you know, the fact that we've been watching an episode of the show every week, you know, really gives you, you know, it puts the show under a microscope.
Yes, absolutely does. So one final note about Spock before we move on to other things. A little bit earlier during Spock's picking apart of Garth, he did mention something that I thought was a very, very interesting tidbit about Vulcan culture. And he was remarking on Marta's dance, saying that it reminded him of Vulcan girls dancing in nursery school.
Right.
So I thought that was really fascinating that there is such a thing as nursery school on Vulcan.
Right,
so
right.
A little bit of a dip into more information about Vulcan culture than we've been aware of prior. And this is a very familiar looking chair, isn't it?
Yes, but we mentioned Day of the Dove earlier, and this looks like the portable version of that chair, right?
Yeah, kind of reminiscent of the Dagger of the Mind chair too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, I said Day of the Dove before too. I meant Dagger of the Mind.
Yeah. So we've got.
You know why I thought Dove? Because they've got that little dove on there. Corey's got it on his suit, and in Dagger of the Mind, didn't they have it as well?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're reusing that.
God, what a botch.
That's all right. You figured it out before the episode was over. It's all
yeah. Well, it was only because you pointed it out.
So this is great because this chair does something very similar to what the Dagger of the Mind chair did.
Yeah, and it's actually, it's not its true purpose. Garth has modified it.
Right. It's supposed to actually help. I guess it's the modern version of shock therapy.
Shock therapy, yes.
Right.
So this is like the mirror version.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. You know, and it's funny that you mentioned the mirror universe because, you know, when we get into Garth's true motives, it almost seems as if Garth is proposing a mirror version of Starfleet in the Prime universe. He's talking about using the power of the Starfleet ships to, you know, conquer stuff and rule the universe. So I thought it was really interesting that Garth, if Garth were able to succeed in his plan, the Prime universe would essentially become the mirror universe, where Starfleet are the bad guys.
Right.
So I wonder what would happen in the mirror universe.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Oof.
If Garth were to succeed here, would he be the good guy and make the mirror universe the Federation the good Federation?
Yeah.
We'll have to wonder if they always parallel each other. So
it's interesting to see how Kirk takes this compared to Corey.
Yeah, well, more insight into how Kirk has this huge pain tolerance. That we've seen him use this discipline in prior episodes as well, but he's still, you know, he's got that great pain face. Shatner has this great pain face. There it is again.
Yeah.
He really plays it up. Really plays it. And you know, one thing I noticed about this episode this time that I watched it earlier to do some research for this commentary was that there's a few times where Marta will grab the back of her neck.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't put that together before, But what we find out at the end of the episode, Garth actually implanted something in her neck,
right?
That they used to dispose of her later. But I hadn't really realized prior to watching it earlier that that's what was going on. Why she kept kind of wincing and grabbing the back of her neck.
Yeah. No, that's very cool, and it's something that I'm going to admittedly say that I did not notice until you just pointed it out. So, it really speaks to Yvonne Craig's performance. I think there's a lot of great detail in her performance, and like I said, I think Marta is one of the most tragic characters in the whole original series.
Oh, I agree.
In my opinion, yeah.
Yeah. It will probably be for me. It would be between maybe her and maybe Miramani.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty tragic as well. But do you have any background information on Yvonne? Was she a dancer?
You know what? I didn't dig too deep on her backstory because we all know her as Batgirl.
Right.
From the 60s Batman. She was born in 1937, and I did not dig much deeper than that because for me, it begins and ends with Batman, as terrible as that sounds.
Well, that's not a bad thing. The 60s Batman was great in its own way. But I just noticed, she was doing the dance before, and she seems to have a dancer's figure.
Yeah.
She seems to have the legs of a dancer. So, and if you look at the way she stands and the way she sits on the floor, she sits and stands kind of in the same poses that dancers do. So that made me wonder if she had dance experience in the past. But so here we are once again, Kirk getting his interstellar swerve on.
Yeah, but there is going to be a swerve here.
There is going to be. Yeah, it's going to be a script flip. But this is one of the big jokes people make about Captain Kirk. Banging the green chick, right?
Yeah.
So this is the only time we actually see him with an Orion girl.
Yeah.
Until the 2009 reboots, we see him with another one. In the Academy, they have Orion girls in the Starfleet Academy. But
yes,
so very cool that we were getting some interplay here, where Marta is seemingly trying to help Kirk.
Yeah,
and this is really just a setup because she's I love how she said she's arranged for Spock to be set free, only to be used as a setup. So pretty cool. There's a lot more little tidbits we can talk about Garth too as the story goes along, but I still find this performance by Marta in this scene to be very, very good.
Yeah, no, it's tremendous. I think it's really just a well-written character and with a performance that matches. And now we've got our Basic Instinct moment.
Yep. Yep. The Basic Instinct moment. The knife has come out, and Kirk is at a disadvantage because he's on the bottom, and she's exerting her body weight. But Kirk is able to wrest the knife from him.
Yeah. Didn't she say something to the effect of, I love you, I have to kill you?
Yeah, she says it to Spock.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you mustn't stop me. He's my lover, and I have to kill him. And I love that crazy head tilt.
Yeah.
That she does, and she really plays that scene well. And one thing I have to say for Garth, when he transforms into somebody else, he really does some great impressions.
Yeah. Well, this is Garth here, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did he know how to do the nerve pinch, or is Marta selling it?
I have to think Marta's just selling it.
Yeah.
To be honest, because I think she's just trying to sell the fact that that's actually Spock, and I think Kirk buys into it. Right up until the end, when Garth kind of tips his hand, and can't maintain the Spock facade well enough. But he does a pretty good Spock impression up to that point.
Yeah.
Oh, here's poor Tellarite. This poor Tellarite just gets zapped. Oh, that's a shame.
He took a nice fall, though.
He did. He did, right into the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder these sets. I wonder where these sets were, because this is not a standard ship interior.
Yeah.
I get these must have been sets that were built for this episode, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, now we have another great Scotty moment here, where the chess play comes into play again, where they want the answer to the chess problem, which actually winds up flipping flipping Garth's hand. This is an interesting play too by Garth as Spock, because he kind of does something that's not Spock-like. Spock requests permission to remain behind in charge of the security team.
Yeah.
Why? It seems very strange. I mean, we know he's Garth, but that should have tipped Kirk off right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shouldn't have taken waiting for this, the insistence for the countersign from Kirk. But I love the look of recognition there that Kirk figures it out.
Yeah, and that's really Kirk's trust no one moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, how can he? I mean, he knows that Garth can shapeshift. I mean, he saw him shapeshift from Dr. Corey back to himself, and then he saw Garth transform into him.
Yeah.
So, great stuff. And, of course, this is the Die Hard moment where McClane didn't give Hans Gruber a loaded gun.
Yeah.
So Garth made sure that it was a discharged phaser, and Kirk tosses it aside. But I love how bold he is. Kirk just walks right up to Garth with the phaser. I mean, he knows that Garth needs him alive. And, he leaves it to Garth to threaten him with all sorts of other stuff. But he knows that he won't kill him. But he's still being diplomatic. He's still not... I mean, he could have easily tried to fight him right there. Swipe the phaser away a little bit and, get physical with him. But he's still going to try to appeal to the man that Garth once was.
Yeah.
Which I think is absolutely fascinating. That Kirk once again exercises extreme restraint.
Right.
And I don't if that's purely out of his reverence for Garth, or out of his own sympathies for the mental illness, or is it just a play, knowing the situation that he's in and knowing that Garth can become unhinged and just, freak out and blow him away or blow Spock away at any moment?
I think it's a combination of all three. I think he definitely knows that Garth isn't at his normal operating capacity. He knows the man that he was, and he also knows that he has to handle him with kid gloves. So I think your assessment, you roll all of those factors up, and you've got, I think, how Kirk's approaching it. And this is more of that empathetic delivery that I know we both love so much from Shatner and from the character of Kirk.
And I love this scene here. Is the dialogue is wonderful, and you see Kirk almost break through and get through to the old Garth, and Garth's actually thinking about what Kirk is saying. The great man you once were, and we studied you in Starfleet. You were the prototype for starship captains, and we all tried to emulate you. And all the things you did, it wasn't your fault. You're mentally ill, and I just want to see you get back to the great man that you were. And Garth almost buys into it.
Yeah.
And that was it. And here Kirk is playing back along. He's still playing along, bowing down, and he's going to attempt to turn the force field off and get stunned in the process. But
oof. Well, while you mentioned the writing, we should talk real quick about the writing. This episode was written by Lee Irwin, working from a story from Irwin and Jerry Soule. And Irwin died in 1972 at the age of 65. And during his career, he wrote multiple episodes, and I've only picked out the series that he wrote multiple times for, of Circus Boy, which is of interest to me and you because it starred a young Mickey Dolenz.
Yes.
Of the Monkees. And as you may know, we do the Zilch podcast with Ken Mills and some other folks. Sea Hunt, Peyton Place, and The Flying Nun.
All right. And I think it wasn't Susan Oliver on Peyton Place?
I believe so, yeah.
Star Trek connection there.
Yeah.
So very cool. Very cool. So now we're in this mock coronation ceremony, which I think is great.
Yeah, well, Garth is trying to appeal to Kirk's ego. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as one man in power to another. he offers Kirk the crown prince, the heir apparent position in Garth's court. So now that Garth is being coronated as the king of the universe, the master of the universe, Kirk will be his successor.
Yeah.
Which, of course, Kirk has no interest in, but I love this ceremony that they set up. They put a chair up on top of a desk and roll out a golden carpet. And, Garth kind of strides up and has a kind of a little funky crown where I don't know where they got the crown from. They must have made it somehow.
Yeah, I mean, they made so many other things in this episode. What, he made one of the most powerful explosives known to man.
Yeah, and that of course was mentioned in the very beginning of the episode and doesn't actually come into play until the very end.
Yeah.
So that explosive has just been kind of thrown by the wayside at this point, and then only to return with a vengeance later on. But a couple of other interesting notes that I'll throw out about the Garth character that were mentioned in the episode is that Garth claims that he's charted more unknown worlds than any man in history. So he must have been out there doing stuff under the Starfleet banner for many years to have charted that many planets, right?
Well, maybe he didn't get as distracted as the Enterprise seems to always do.
Yeah, well, maybe he charted so many worlds now the Enterprise doesn't have that many places where no man has gone before to explore anymore.
Yeah.
Garth's already been there.
Yeah, you can see them put a little asterisk next to that every time he says where no man has gone before. Asterisk, except for Garth.
Except for Garth. And Kirk claims that he studied Garth's victories at Axanar, but then Kirk says that he had gone back to Axanar on a peace mission. So interesting that and that of course got Garth a little bit hot under the collar, but interesting to know where Kirk has been in relation to Garth. So we find that Kirk has some missions that we haven't seen. We didn't see Kirk go to Axanar. So a little bit of insight into Kirk's career prior to being captain of the Enterprise. Cool stuff. So at any rate, now we're back in the control room again, and this time this is probably the tragic part you were talking about before with Marta, right?
Yeah, just because it's such a it's a shocking moment in Trek, definitely, and also I think really shocking television for 1969.
I completely agree with you, and every time I watch this episode, I want the outcome to be different.
Yeah, it really comes as a shock, and it's done, and it's covered in such a way that it's really, really blunt. It's not graphic, but it's so direct. She's there and then she's not. I mean, it's it definitely lends credence to the idea that what you don't show is sometimes more important than what you do show.
I agree. And by the way, we're seeing the environmental suits again.
Yeah, look at that.
They make another appearance. I find it interesting, too, that Garth picked one of his own people to do this to, and not Spock.
Yeah.
You would have thought that he would take Spock, because Kirk would have more of an attachment to Spock and be, more apt to give in if Spock was out there in the poison atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess this is also a way for Garth to demonstrate his explosive.
Yeah.
And how there's only a bit of it, the size of a grain of sand has been implanted into Marta's neck. So we're going to see just how effective this explosive is.
Oh, God.
That's so sad.
Oh, goodness, man. It really,
very graphic, and they actually showed the explosion.
Yeah, I mean that's the really off-putting part of it, and I'm amazed that the executives at NBC didn't have an issue with that.
I am too, because this is another one of those situations where if this show was on television today, you would have seen blood and body parts flying all over the place.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that was, and so thinking about this in 1968-69 terms, you know, what we saw is probably the equivalent to The Walking Dead, right?
Yeah.
In today's terms. So, you know, had to be pretty jarring back then to see a girl literally explode. I mean, they didn't even shift the camera away and show Kirk's face while, you know, the explosion happened off camera. You know, they actually kept the viewers watching as the explosion happened. So pretty cold-blooded move by Garth, I have to say.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, really
great remastered shot there of the Enterprise in orbit.
Yeah, great. And you know, the another really sad perspective on it is that, you know, the episode does wind up with a happy ending, right? And everybody gets away, but you know, Marta could have been cured. She could have walked away a healthy, normal Orion girl, right? They could have given her that medicine.
Yeah, I mean, that's the tragic aspect of that for me, is she's such a tortured soul due to her mental illness there, and she doesn't get that happy ending. It's just, ugh.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah.
It's really, really sad. Like, she was minutes away from it.
Yeah, yeah. And it almost feels like she didn't understand really her situation until right before it happened as well.
Exactly. I mean, she thought she was safe.
Yeah.
She thought she just helped Garth, you know, trick Kirk by, you know, with the whole Spock ruse, and she thought she was in good.
Yeah.
And he gave her the consort position in his court. I mean, what indication did she have that he was going to execute her moments later?
Right.
So, that is very, very tragic. And I agree, that is definitely one of the top most tragic characters in all of the original series.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we didn't mention Edith Keeler. You know, could probably be added to that list, but
yeah. So I'm sure we could dredge up a few more, but I don't want to take too much away from what's about to happen here.
Yeah.
Because we've got a Star Trek first about to happen.
Here it is.
This is a Star Trek first, and I can't believe this has never happened before.
Yeah, it took them till the third season to bust this out.
I absolutely love this, and you could see it coming a mile away, and there it is, the first double nerve pinch.
Well, maybe they had finally loosened up on the nerve pinch restrictions that they had early on.
Yeah, that's the the second and third nerve pinch we've seen in this episode so far, but I absolutely loved it. I mean, you could see the setup you could see it coming a mile away. You knew he was going to go for it.
Oh, that's the stand up and fist your pump moment if you're seeing this in a theater.
Yeah, so great. So great. The hero moment by Spock, but I you know, we need more of that in Star Trek. We need more of that. And this is another thing that I'm really happy to see once again, because we haven't seen this in quite a while either. Captain Kirk versus Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a long time since we've seen Kirk fight himself.
Yeah.
So what is it, season 1, right? I mean, Enemy Within, Kirk fighting Kirk, and you know, it was nice to see that split screen being used again.
Yeah, and there's actually some really good double work during the fight. There's a handful of times where you see the seams, if you will, of the you know, the trickery that's going on. But there's quite a few shots where the double work is really, really well done, and you know, I'm trying to figure out which one is Shatner.
I agree. I was going to say the same thing. So I mean, and you know, the original series is notorious for spilling the beans when it comes to double work. I mean, there's a lot of scenes where you can freeze frame and see clearly that it's a stunt double. So this is one of those good scenes where it's not as apparent. But
yeah,
I love how Spock is quizzing both Kirks to try to figure out which one is Garth. But this is one of the nitpick moments for me.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't he have just mind melded with one of them?
Either that, or he could have easily
nerve pinch both of them,
or he could have easily thrown out a situation that he and Captain Kirk have been through that Garth would know nothing about.
Yeah,
I mean, he could ask about, you know, something about the Pon farr experience on Vulcan.
Yeah, Or maybe even something as simple as, what did we have for breakfast this morning?
Yeah, exactly. But very strange decision by Spock to try to sit down in the chair.
I'm just going to wait him out.
Yeah.
You'll have to turn back eventually.
Yeah, very strange that he went to sit. He could have just kind of stood there for a while. But
yeah, and it's amazing that during the fight, Garth was able to keep it together.
I agree. And, Spock also could have just stunned both of them with the phaser.
Yeah, that was the moment right there where I was really impressed, where you see the two Kirks sort of spin around, and both of them look like Shatner to me.
Yeah, the one on the floor, I think, was not Shatner. The one on top right now.
Yeah. Before they hit the floor, when they did, that was a shot that I actually reversed and watched again.
Yep, I agree. Very, very, very good. The guy that they had doing the double work was pretty spot on. And the hair was pretty much spot on.
That might have been what really sold me on it. So now we have the true captain moment.
Yep.
The true captain saying the only right decision here is to take us both out.
Yep.
And
but that wasn't what tipped Spock off.
Oh, no?
He'll say, there's going to be a little comedy moment here.
Right.
Where Spock admits that he assumed that Garth would win in the physical confrontation.
Right.
So a little bit of an insult there to Kirk, but he saves face by saying it would have been, it was because of Kirk's weakened state. But here we are, the Andorian looks really happy about getting that drug injected.
Yeah.
So he didn't get a heck of a lot of McCoy this episode.
No.
Yeah, we're getting one of just a couple of short scenes. And I guess they fixed the chair.
Yeah, or that could be another chair.
Oh, it could be. Maybe they had more than one. But now we're seeing Garth get his treatment and wake up a calm and collected and cool version of himself who doesn't seem to remember Kirk or Spock.
Yeah, and you can see in his performance, he wakes up and he looks sane.
Good observation.
There's something with his eyes. His eyes are softer. Or he's lacking in intensity. There's a definite difference there for me.
Yeah, no, there definitely is a difference there, for sure. Good observation. I didn't really stop to think about that. But you're right, he does seem like a different version of himself. So I guess that's a testament to his portrayal of the crazy Garth.
Yeah.
That you can pick up on that. And I love this ending scene with him where he asks, "Should I know you?"
Yeah.
And Kirk doesn't even attempt. He just says, "No, you shouldn't. That's it. You're good."
And I know we sort of danced around this a little bit during the episode, but I really want to say that this episode really was impressive to me in the way that it talked about and dealt with mental illness, which is still something that we deal with as a society today. And it just seemed like the way they handled it here and the level of compassion they showed to those characters in the story, I don't know, it just felt like we've talked a lot about, if you dig deep enough, you'll find the true message of the episode. And it seemed to me with this episode is, the surface level stuff is so interesting for me. And it really feels like an important episode in terms of pointing out a problem in society at the time that probably wasn't really being talked about.
And still a problem and a stigma in society today.
Yeah.
50 years on.
I would almost argue that the way Trek handled it is better than the way it's handled today.
Yeah, you're probably right on that. Right on that. So excellent points. And I think that you're spot on. I'll refer back to, the different version of Captain Kirk we've seen, the downshifted Kirk, the more compassionate Kirk, and the way they wrote that character for this episode, to take the mental illness of the villains into account.
Yeah.
And not immediately resort to violence and taking a swing at them or shooting at them with phasers, but instead trying to use his own mental faculties to get himself and Spock out of that situation. So,
Right.
Bravo to the writing of this episode, and the portrayals of these characters. All of them were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. So I don't know if that has tipped my hand at all about my feelings on the essential nature of this episode, but you can probably see it coming a mile away that I am going to vote this episode essential for a couple of reasons. And the big one is that, we are introduced to a historic figure from Starfleet. We get some insight into things that had gone on prior to the original series, and some insight into a prior mission of Kirk's that coincides with the place that Garth has been prior to fight a battle. So we know that Kirk studied Garth in the academy, and that Garth was the template by which other Starfleet captains after him modeled themselves. So I think it's a lot of really cool, interesting backstory on Starfleet and the academy and things that Kirk has done in the past. And on a small side note, this isn't really too much into the essential, but I like that little bit of insight into Vulcan culture, talking about nursery school on Vulcan. So my thought is, of course, that if Finnegan made Shore Leave essential and Kirk's dead brother made Operation Annihilate essential, then I kind of have to say Garth makes this episode essential.
Sure. And then also even the double nerve pinch.
Yeah.
I was really on the fence here, but you convinced me during the course of our discussion that this is essential. And I know it's one of the rare double essentials. It feels like we haven't agreed in a really long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. And this episode for me is a high point of season 3. There aren't a lot of really great episodes, but this one to me is one of the really good ones. And I'm sure some people will disagree with me, but I think the performances in this episode are absolutely phenomenal. The characters are so dynamic and well done.
Right on.
All right. So that's it. No, nothing else?
No.
All right. So excellent. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in once again. We're always happy to have you with us, and we look forward to more discussions on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Tricorder Transmissions, Twitter, TTT_pod, and our own website at thetricordertransmissions.com. So look for another commentary episode next Sunday, and coming up this Wednesday, only a few short days from now, will be the 4th installment of What Are Little Songs Made Of? So look for another 5-year mission song discussion a few days from now, and we'll see you again very soon.
Whom the gods would destroy, they first make mad, is an old Latin saying, and the title of this next installment of Star Trek. We're about to land at an insane asylum on a planet called Elba-2. There, we'll meet a once brilliant military leader driven to lunacy, who now wants to conquer and rule the known universe. If this conjures up images of Napoleon in exile, it was intentional on the parts of the writers Lee Irwin and Jerry Soule. Perhaps our fascination with insanity lies in the distorted images we see of ourselves. The evil we might do, the greatness we might strive for, the freedom we might feel. In madness, we may see our other selves, the ones that live just below the surface. Now, whom gods destroy. Yvonne Craig, who plays Marta in this episode, was better known as Batgirl in the classic Batman television series. And Key Luke, who portrays Governor Corey in this installment, had quite the film and television career, with roles ranging from the classic The Good Earth to early Charlie Chan movies. But his most famous role was the blind Master Po, who taught Grasshopper the finer points of martial arts in the television series Kung Fu. If you're getting the impression that Star Trek was giving its children hand-me-down clothes, you're right. In Whom Gods Destroy, Marta's costume was a pared-down version of Venus' Slave Girl ensemble from the Cage, and the spacesuits from the Tholian Web make their reappearance together with Dr. Adams' robe. And the neural neutralizer chair is familiar from Daggers of the Mind. Between the skimpy budgets and declining ratings, we were quickly becoming aware that the end was near.